They say when you hit rock bottom, you find out who really cares. I found out from a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles, counting the seconds between each beep of the heart monitor, waiting for someone, anyone, to show up. My name is Daniel. I'm 34 years old, and for the last 6 years, I've been the unofficial financial backbone of my family. Rent? I paid it. Groceries? Me. My younger brother's car lease? I co-signed. I didn't complain. Not once. Not when I had to pick up overtime. Not when I had to skip my own vacations to keep the lights on in their house. I did it because I thought that's what family was supposed to do, help each other. It all started after my dad passed unexpectedly. I was 28, working in IT at a mid-sized firm, and doing well for myself. My younger brother, Jason, was 22 and finding himself, which mostly meant bouncing between failed business ideas and living off our mom. My mother, Elaine, was complicated. Strong-willed, sharp-tongued, and absolutely convinced the world owed her something after Dad passed away. She leaned hard on the idea that since I was the successful one, I had a responsibility to keep the family afloat. At first, I agreed. I figured it was temporary, just until we all got our footing again. But temporary turned into permanent real fast. What started as a couple months of covering rent turned into years. First, it was helping out with the groceries. Then the phone bill. Then Jason needed a temporary loan for a car so he could start driving for Uber. That car never once ferried a passenger. It sat in their driveway while Jason started a podcast that lasted 4 episodes. And through it all, Mom never once said thank you. It was always, well, if your father were here, or this is what families do, Daniel. And stupidly, I kept doing it. Even when I started noticing my own savings thinning. Even when I wanted to move into a bigger place, but couldn't justify it with how much I was forking over each month to cover their lives. I kept telling myself it was worth it. That someday they'd step up for me if I needed it. That all this sacrifice would mean something. Then I got sick. It started small. Fatigue. A weird ache in my right side that wouldn't go away. I thought it was nothing, maybe just stress. But it got worse. Sharp, stabbing pain. Nausea. I finally went to the hospital after almost collapsing in the office bathroom. Appendicitis. Ruptured. They rushed me into emergency surgery. When I woke up, groggy and sore and barely able to move, my phone had one message. From my boss. Not my mom. Not my brother. Not a single missed call from the people I'd been supporting for years. I tried not to spiral, but it was impossible not to feel the weight of that silence. I stayed 2 nights in the hospital. On the second day, I finally called Mom. Hey, I croaked, my throat dry from the anesthesia. I just got out of surgery. I could use a little help getting home. Maybe just someone to pick up my prescription and... She cut me off. Daniel, I'm sorry you're not feeling well, but you're a grown man. You're not our responsibility. Jason's already dealing with enough stress, and I can't drop everything to be your chauffeur. I just stared at the wall, the phone still pressed to my ear. I didn't even know what to say. For a moment, I wondered if I was dreaming. If maybe the anesthesia hadn't worn off and this was just some bizarre hallucination. But she kept going. Maybe next time you won't overwork yourself. You know, if you had a wife or someone in your life, you wouldn't need to lean on us like this. I don't mean to sound harsh, but we've all got our own problems. She hung up before I could even respond. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But all I felt was this deep, numbing coldness settle into my chest. Like someone had taken a match to everything I thought I knew about family and left nothing but smoke. The nurse ended up calling a cab for me. I shuffled into my apartment, still sore, still dazed, with a pharmacy bag clutched in one hand. And I sat on my couch for an hour, staring into space, feeling something inside me fracture. That night, I opened my laptop. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I just started typing. I pulled up my banking app, started tallying every automatic payment I'd set up over the years, rent for their apartment, groceries through Instacart, Jason's car insurance, the utilities. I clicked cancel on every single one. The next morning, I sent a short, calm message in our group chat. Due to my health, I'll no longer be financially supporting anyone but myself. Best of luck. I didn't get a response right away. In fact, for 3 full days, the chat was dead silent. I thought maybe they didn't see it. Or maybe they didn't believe me. But then the text started. First from Jason. Bro, did the rent not go through? Landlord's saying we're late. Then Mom. Daniel, I know you've been going through something, but now is not the time to be selfish. We're struggling here. Struggling. That word made my blood boil. Because I knew what struggling looked like. I had struggled through college, juggling 2 jobs while they took weekend trips and posted pictures at wine tastings. I had struggled when I quietly took out a second job last year to keep their heating on during winter. They hadn't seen struggling. They had seen convenience. I ignored the texts. Day 4, Jason called. I didn't pick up. Day 5, Mom called. I stared at the screen until it went dark. By day 6, they were outside my apartment building. I live in a condo complex with a gated lot, but that didn't stop them from standing outside the front door, arms folded, faces twisted with indignation like I was the one who had wronged them. I watched from my window. Mom had a tissue clutched in her hand, dabbing her eyes dramatically while Jason paced and gestured like a reality show contestant who just found out they were voted off. They were shouting into the call box, pressing every apartment number like that would make me cave. I stood there, one hand still wrapped around my side, the pain meds barely dulling the soreness, and I felt something strange. Relief. For the first time in years, I felt no guilt, no obligation, just clarity. But that's not where the story ends. They didn't leave. Not after 10 minutes. Not after 30. I watched as the daylight started to fade and the sun slipped behind the buildings. They were still there, parked on the curb like some sad excuse for a protest. Jason eventually sat on the hood of his car, my car, technically, since I still had my name on the lease, and started scrolling on his phone. Mom paced, probably crafting some dramatic Facebook post about being abandoned by the son she raised. I shut the blinds and turned on the TV. It was almost midnight when they finally left. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they just fell asleep in the car downstairs. I didn't check. I didn't care. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of pounding. Not knocking. Pounding. I dragged myself to the door, looked through the peephole, and there she was, Mom, hair disheveled, eyes red like she hadn't slept. She must have heard me approach, because she shouted, "Daniel, open this door. We need to talk." I leaned against the wall, still weak from surgery, and said, "No, we don't." That only made her angrier. "You can't just cut us off like this. We're your family. We supported you your whole life." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out bitter and hollow. "You mean like how you supported me while I was recovering from surgery?" Real inspiring stuff. There was a long silence. Then, the classic mom sigh, the one that meant she was about to try guilt. "You know how much we've been through, Daniel. Your brother's struggling. I'm still grieving your father. You make more than enough to help. What are we supposed to do now? Be homeless? You were supposed to be adults." I snapped, louder than I intended. "I didn't ask you to depend on me. I offered. And all I got back was entitlement and silence the one time I needed you." She actually scoffed. "You're exaggerating. One surgery doesn't make you some tragic victim." I didn't answer. She stood there for a while, muttering under her breath. Eventually, she left again. But she wasn't done. That afternoon, my phone started blowing up. Calls, texts, voicemails. Some were her. Some were Jason. Some were extended family members I hadn't spoken to in months, suddenly very interested in hearing my side. That's when I realized something had changed. She was telling everyone. According to Aunt Marie, Mom had said I'd lost my mind after surgery and decided to punish them out of nowhere. That I'd threatened to make them homeless. That I was abusive with money. And that they were scared for their safety. That one made me choke on my water. Scared? They had practically lived on my dime for 6 years. And now I was dangerous? I thought about writing a big, dramatic message. One of those "here's the truth" posts where I'd lay out every expense, every loan I covered, every bill I paid. But I didn't. Instead, I made 2 calls. The first was to the car dealership. I told them I was removing myself from Jason's lease and explained the circumstances. Legally tricky, but they said if he missed one more payment, which he already had, they'd repossess the car. Fine by me. The second was to the landlord I'd been paying on their behalf. "Hi, this is Daniel. I'm no longer financially responsible for the tenants in Unit 3B. You'll want to direct rent and notices to them going forward." She hesitated. "Are you sure? There's already a balance on the account." "I'm sure." I hung up, then sat in the quiet. That night, I got another knock on the door. This time, it was Jason. He didn't shout. He didn't bang. Just stood there, staring into the peephole like he could see me through it. "Dan, man, just talk to me," he said, voice softer than I'd heard in years. "Look, I know Mom's been dramatic, but we're really in a bad spot. I'm gonna lose my car. She's freaking out. I get it. You were mad, but come on, I didn't open the door." But I said, loud enough for him to hear. I gave you everything I could. Now you can give me one thing. Silence. He stood there a while longer. Then I heard him walk away. But the next day, something happened that almost made me open that door. A white envelope. No return address. Just left under my door. Inside, a printout of my medical bill. No note. Just the invoice. They'd gotten access to my insurance info. Somehow, I froze. Then I felt this deep, boiling heat rise in my chest. Because it wasn't just passive aggression anymore. It was war, and I was done playing nice. I stared at the bill for a long time. Not because I was confused, because I knew exactly what this was. A message. A threat. A reminder. It was Mom's way of saying, we know what you spent, and we can use it too. Somehow, she'd either gone through my mail when I was unconscious in the hospital, or, worse, coerced someone at the insurance company. Either way, it was personal now, and invasive in a way that made my skin crawl. I slid the envelope back under the door. No note. No reaction. I knew they were probably waiting outside, hoping I'd come charging out, furious and flustered. But I wasn't going to give them that. Instead, I spent the next few hours doing something I should have done a long time ago. I printed statements, screenshotted text messages, downloaded every single invoice, auto payment, and document I had that tied my name to their finances. I opened an Excel sheet and started itemizing every dollar. Rent from January 2019 to March 2025, groceries, utilities, Jason's car lease, Mom's emergency dental surgery I'd paid for when she forgot. Her insurance had lapsed. I even tallied up smaller things, streaming accounts, takeout receipts she'd Venmo requested and never paid back, a weekend retreat for Jason's now-defunct men's coaching brand. The total came to $97,842. I stared at that number and had to take a breath. Almost $100,000. Gone. Quietly, invisibly siphoned from my bank account over 6 years while I lived like I was just managing well, thinking I was being a good son. I hadn't said no once. That night, I emailed myself everything, zipped it into a password-protected folder, and backed it up twice. I wasn't planning to use it, but I wanted to have it. The next morning, I got a knock on the door again. It wasn't loud, just firm, measured. I looked through the peephole and nearly laughed. It was Uncle Ron. Of course it was. Uncle Ron was the family's fixer. Not legally, he was a gym manager, but emotionally. The self-appointed mediator who always inserted himself whenever drama brewed. The guy who gave everyone unsolicited TED Talks on putting pride aside and choosing peace over ego, even though he once got kicked out of a Dave and Buster's for flipping over a Monopoly board during a family night. He was holding a tray of coffee cups. Peacemaker mode activated. I opened the door just a crack. "Hey, buddy," he said, that salesman's smile plastered across his face. Didn't want to intrude, just thought I'd come by and talk. I didn't say anything. He extended a coffee toward the gap in the door. "It's black. Just how you like it." I slowly took the cup, still silent. He cleared his throat, shifting awkwardly. "Look, your mom's really upset. Jason too. And I get it. This whole thing's been messy. But you know how family is. Words get twisted, feelings get hurt. The important thing is, did they send you?" I asked. He hesitated. No. I mean, I talked to them. Yeah, but I came because I care. This whole situation, it's not you, okay? It's the stress. You're all going through a lot." I finally stepped out into the hallway, folding my arms. "What exactly do you think is happening, Ron?" He blinked. "Well, from what I've heard, you kind of cut everyone off without warning. And I know you were in the hospital and all, but I mean, that's a little extreme, right?" I felt that flicker of rage again. The deep, boiling kind. But I kept my voice calm. I sent a text. I explained. I didn't make it dramatic. I just said I couldn't keep supporting them. After 6 years. After they ignored me in a hospital bed. He opened his mouth, but I wasn't done. I wasn't asking for money. I wasn't asking for some big gesture. I just wanted someone to show up. And instead, my mom said I wasn't her responsibility. You think I overreacted? Fine. But don't come here acting like I ghosted them out of spite. Ron rubbed his jaw, looking unusually serious. Okay. Fair. But still, you've got to admit, this isn't healthy for anyone. They're barely scraping by now. Your mom's rent is overdue. The car might get repossessed. It should get repossessed, I said flatly. It was never his. And I'm not paying another cent. He didn't like that. Ron's tone shifted. Dan, come on. You really gonna let your mother lose her home over a misunderstanding? I stared at him. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was clarity. And maybe it's time she learns what responsibility actually looks like. He sighed and stepped back, clearly realizing I wasn't bending. All right. All right. But don't expect this to blow over. You know how she is. I nodded. Yeah, I do. He turned and walked off, muttering something under his breath about families tearing themselves apart for no reason. But I wasn't tearing anything. I was finally stopping the slow bleed. The next few days were oddly quiet. No calls. No voicemails. Not even passive-aggressive social media posts. Just silence. I wasn't sure if it was a retreat or the calm before a storm. But I took the time to rest, focus on healing, and start therapy for the first time in years. Then, one morning, I got an email from my HR department. It was flagged urgent. Apparently, someone had contacted my workplace anonymously, claiming I was misusing company funds, stealing software, and emotionally unstable following a medical breakdown. They attached no evidence, just vague, inflammatory language. But the timing? Too perfect to ignore. And the sender? A newly created burner address. I sat at my desk, rereading the email 5 times, stomach sinking. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about money. It was about destroying me. And they were willing to go a lot further than I ever expected. I stared at that email for a long time. At first, I wasn't even angry. I was stunned. My brain couldn't wrap around the idea that someone in my own family would try to sabotage my job. But deep down, I knew. Not just in a vague, gut feeling kind of way. I knew. It was Mom. Jason didn't have the brains to word an email like that. And besides, this was her kind of revenge. Not loud, not direct, but sneaky and reputational. She'd always been obsessed with how the world perceived us, how she was perceived. To her, image was currency. And now that I'd cut her off financially, she was trying to bankrupt my reputation. The email was clearly nonsense. There was no theft, no breakdown. I was back at work, fully cleared by HR, and doing my job just fine. But the damage was in the implication. That someone out there thought I was unstable. That someone was whispering about me. I set down my coffee and opened the folder I'd been building. I never wanted to use it. I wanted to heal. Move on. Forget them. But they wouldn't let me. They wanted war? Fine. They'd get scorched earth. I started with the landlord. I emailed him the list of all the rent payments I'd made under my name for the past several years. I explained that I was no longer financially tied to them and requested an official removal from the lease records, something I'd previously left informal. He responded within an hour, apologetic and even offering to blacklist my mother and brother from future rentals, citing multiple payment delays and loud disturbances. I told him that wouldn't be necessary. Yet, then I called the dealership about Jason's car. He'd officially defaulted on 3 payments. I paid the outstanding balance to trigger a voluntary repossession, about $900, which stung, but it was worth it. Because now I had full rights to reclaim the vehicle. It was technically under my name, after all. And I did. A week later, the repo truck showed up right in front of their complex. Jason ran outside shirtless, wearing mismatched socks, yelling at the guy to call Dan, like I was going to come sprinting in to stop it. I watched the video of it happen through the truck's dash cam footage, which the driver sent me as a courtesy. Jason kicked the tire, screamed that it was illegal, and then tripped over the curb. My only regret is that I wasn't there to clap. Mom wasn't home at the time, but she made up for it the next morning when I got a full-page email. Subject line: "How dare you the body?" Long-winded, emotional manipulation mixed with veiled threats. Accused me of turning my back on the woman who gave me life. Said I'd humiliated her and left them to starve while I hoarded wealth like a heartless miser. Claimed she was going to sue me for emotional damages, which is not a thing, but I'm sure her Facebook law degree said otherwise. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent one final email. No emotion. Just an itemized invoice titled, "Support provided to Elaine and Jason Whitmore." I broke down the total, $97,842. I added, "This is not a legal debt collection. It's a personal record of the support I provided you both over 6 years. I am under no obligation to offer you continued assistance. Any further attempts to damage my reputation or contact my employer will be considered harassment and responded to legally." Then I CC'd my actual attorney. They went radio silent for 2 weeks. I thought maybe it was finally over. Then came the knock on my door. I'd moved since all this started. Smaller apartment, but quiet. No shared walls. Gated entry. I'd even told management I didn't want my unit number listed on the directory. So when I heard the knock, my first thought was that it was a delivery. I opened the door without checking, and there she was. Mom. Looking thin. Older. Worn down. Her makeup was uneven. She clutched her purse like it was armor. Daniel, she said, softly. I stepped back, unsure if I should shut the door or just walk away. I'm not here to fight, she said, holding up her hands. Please. I just want to talk. I didn't invite her in, but I didn't slam the door either. I leaned on the frame, arms crossed. Make it quick. She looked down, then back up. I lost the apartment. Jason's staying with some girl he met online. I'm sleeping at a friend's place. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I said nothing. Her voice cracked. I know I messed up. I know I should have been there when you needed me. I didn't realize how much you were doing until it was gone. I guess. I just thought you'd always be there. I exhaled slowly. That's the problem. You thought I owed you. That helping was my job. It wasn't. I know, she said quickly. I do now. I want to fix things. I want us to talk again. We're still family, right? That word made my jaw tighten. Family shows up when it matters, I said. Family doesn't sabotage your career or steal your mail. I was desperate, she whispered. We didn't know what else to do. You could have called, I said. When I was in the hospital. When I got out. When I was alone and couldn't lift groceries. You didn't even check on me. She started to cry, but I didn't feel moved. I'd cried enough for all of us. And I was done letting her weaponize guilt. I'm not giving you money, I said plainly. I know, she sniffled. I'm not here to ask. Then what do you want? She hesitated. Just a chance to rebuild. Even if it's slow. Even if it takes years. I studied her. For once, I didn't see the manipulator. I saw the consequences of years of entitlement finally crashing down. And I realized something. I didn't hate her. I just didn't trust her. And I probably never would again. I'm willing to be civil, I said. That's all I can offer. You don't get access to my life. You don't get my address. You don't get my help. But you can text. Maybe one day, I'll reply. She nodded. Slowly. Like someone accepting a life sentence. And then she left. No drama. No parting shot. Just silence. 6 months have passed. I haven't heard from Jason at all. Mom texted once. Hope you're doing well. I didn't reply. I'm back at work. I'm stronger. Healthier. I've started putting money into my future. Savings, travel, small luxuries I used to deny myself because I thought it was selfish. I go to therapy every week. I don't apologize for saying no anymore. Sometimes, I still feel that sting, like maybe I should have done more. Like maybe cutting them off was cruel. But then I remind myself, I gave everything I had. And when I needed the smallest thing in return, they gave me nothing. That wasn't family. That was dependency wrapped in guilt. And walking away? That was the first act of love I ever gave myself.